tearing apart, ripping apart until it can be reshaped, molding together, shaping together until its form is found, sewing together, binding together until the fabric fits the form, living together, dying together, enjoying life anew. I wish I had a better relationship with my twin brother Orion. We never really saw eye to eye, preferring to keep to ourselves. I guess that's how it always been. It's strange though, since we were always so similar, we had the same hobbies, hunting and fishing. We went for the same chemistry degree in college. I guess since there was never really any difference between us, there was really never anything new to talk about. He went missing about a month ago on the deer hunting trip, and we never heard back from him. We tried to go to the deer stand he was hunting in, but it was empty, save for a backpack, a chair, some other things, and for some reason there were about 20 empty slug shells laying around his empty shotgun, which indicated a fight, but besides that there was nothing. No blood, no signs of struggle, nothing. The only unusual thing was an abundance of tracks around the stand. Mostly deer, but there were also horses, wolves, and pig tracks. As unusual as that was, I didn't have time to think about it. We were busy moving his stuff in the house, and I would have to stay there for a while to make sure nobody stole anything. He got the house in a pretty shady neighborhood, and whilst it was in decent shape, his neighbors were not. I looked over to my father, who was about to leave. Okay, see you later, Rigel. By the way, a detective is coming over later this night to ask some questions. A detective? I replied, confused. Yeah, works with the police. Anyways, if you need anything, just call. I'll be over next weekend. A detective, huh? I thought to myself. It was quite late, so they must be coming soon. I guess I should fix myself something before they arrive. I moved to the kitchen to find the eggs. There still should be some in the fridge, along with olive oil. The fridge's light is a little dim, but it's still plenty cold, and I can see the eggs in the back. I take them, and the oil. I try to find the pan under the shelf. It must just be under here. Oh, I look to where the pan is. Well, not just any pan. A white copper one my brother used to cook a variety of dishes with. He always used to make a great bacon and eggs. Remembering that makes me a little sad, and I stay there a little. Well, until my stomach grumbles a little again. Well, there's no point in being sad forever. I'll do what my brother would do. Use this pan and make some bacon and eggs. I say to myself as they go back to the fridge and pull out some bacon and turn on the stove. It takes a couple minutes, and although sad, those feelings are easily temporarily drowned by the delicious eggs and bacon. Line. Your boss. Just as I finish up my bacon, I hear that knocking on the door, and as I get up to answer the door, it must be the detective, I think to myself. I open the door and I see a tall, brown-haired man, brown-eyed as well, with a trench coat. Hello, I'm Detective Charles. Thank you for coming, Detective. I'm Rigel, Orion's brother. You look exactly like your brother. He pauses for a moment. Well, enough with the greetings. I need to ask a few questions. No problem. Have a seat in the living room. Do you want any coffee? No, I'll be fine. The detective walks in and has a seat in the living room. Something seems to be bothering him. Is something wrong? I ask. Smells like bacon. I'm surprised, but just for a moment, and reply, Yes, I had some for dinner. The detective takes a moment to think and says, Well, nothing odd about that. What is, though, is the recordings I found on your brother's phone, which I've burned onto the CD. The detective takes out a CD out of his trench coat and puts it on the table. What's on it? I ask. The detective looks at me and sighs, mostly contradictions. I think it's best for you to see it yourself. I look at him, then the CD for a moment, picking it up off the table. I inserted it into the television and started up. This takes a moment until suddenly there's sound, and the sun sat below. Did you hear that? My brother, who I had not heard from for over a month, said, "I've been heading out to a deer and I think something's following me. Weird. I'll make another update when I get there." The video blacks out and then cuts to the deer stand, with the sun slowly rising above the horizon. Okay, so I've managed to get to my deer stand. Whatever that thing was, I stopped hearing it once I got up here. I stopped hearing any noise, actually. The woods are unusually quiet. The video cuts again, and my brother Orion is in his truck. Well, that was odd. Unfortunately, I didn't see any deer today, and whatever that was must have scared everything off, because I didn't even see a squirrel. I mean, not even a squirrel, and they're everywhere around here. Better look next time, I suppose. The video then starts in another stand. "Hey, look at this." My brother then points to the camera to what appears to be a deer. Except something's off. Whatever, I think that's what's been chasing off everything around here. And I can't blame them. I mean, what kind of deer has the horns of a ram? The moment he said that, I noticed it. Instead of the branching antlers of a deer resting on the head, were the spirals of a ram. The guys aren't going to believe this when I bring back a deer with ram horns. He then focuses on his rifle, looks through his scope, brings the gun up, aims for a second, and... But the deer doesn't go away, it doesn't drop, it just looks over to the camera, with half its head blown off. It looks, chuckles, and leaves. The last words my brother said before the video cuts out is, "That's not right." I then turn to the detective and says, "What the hell was that?" Interrupting, the detective says, "Hold on, we only have one more scene to go, and this one's far more interesting than the others." The video cuts to a scene of my brother running up to a deer stand. The deer stand, the one he disappeared from. Something followed me from the car. I don't think they came out from the woods, but at least I'm in my deer stand. No service though. It's night out when the video cuts, and it forwards to dawn. I see it out there, or I should say them. There's two of them out there. I wonder though, if a shot in the head didn't take it down the first time, will a shot in the heart do a trick? Orion focuses his rifle, levels the scope, flips the safety. The loud noise deafens the camera a little, but the deer drops. My brother Orion can be heard saying, "That did the trick." The other deer let out a call. "The bugger's sad he lost his friend." That was the last thing Orion said before the video cut out, until it turned to past dawn, the sun visible above the horizon. My brother can be heard saying, "Crap, crap, crap," frantically. The deer stand is now surrounded by deer, except they're not deer. Some have ram horns, antelope horns, moose antlers. Some have horse legs. The base is a deer, but each one has something out of place, something that does not belong on the deer. God damn it, there's just so many, so many. How's nobody noticed them? There's so many, so many, so many responded to the call. Crap, 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 I'm out of bullets. At least I can't climb, right? Orion suddenly stops talking. The camera points now to one of the not deer, except it has hands instead of hooves. Another one follows behind it, with the deer skin in its mouth. The phone is then dropped over the ledge of the deer stand. Camera to the ground. The words heard are, stay back, you're not a deer," which then dissolves into sobbing, and then pained yells and screams until the phone's battery died. I just sat at the TV, staring at the blank screen for a moment. When I finally finished processing it, I asked, and the police didn't know anything about? Why didn't you? I finally realized something. This detective was no ordinary detective. "What's your business, Charles?" I asked. "What's the point of showing me this?" Then replied, "I work on cases the police aren't allowed to solve, whether classified or unusual ones like this." I think about that for a moment and then reply, "Your job must be a secret one then, right?" Charles nods. "Then why show me all this? What do you need me for?" The detective chuckles a little bit and says, "Funny. Most people don't realize we need their help right off the bat like you do. Truth is, tracking these things are difficult, so I'm going to need your help surveying the areas Orion visited for hunting in the time before the incident. Are you willing to help with that?" I immediately reply, "Yes." "Even if you encounter one of them?" "Yes." The detective smiles a little bit and then says, "Then I suppose it's time to learn what they are, or rather, what we think they are. From what we've gathered, they're some sort of semi-intelligent organism that infests the body of dead deer. However, as you might know, a dead animal will not look like a live one. It'll have parts missing, and that's why they look so strange. They'll take parts from other animals and meld them to their own. Well, at least that's the prevailing theory." "How has no one noticed them?" I asked. "There were so many." The detective then explains. "They move in herds, usually sparsely mixed in with the real deer. The ones that look the most unusual are also almost the most hidden. We also don't know how many are there, but current estimates state that between 1% and 0.01% of the total deer population are just not deer." I'm relieved a little at the explanation, but one other thing confuses me. You speak of estimates. How many people like you are there, and why has no one heard of you guys? The detective thinks about this for a moment and explains. "Have you ever heard of the deep state? The idea that some government employees know a different guy in a different department and they all kind of form a group to influence the country?" "I'm familiar with the idea," I reply. "Well, imagine that with hunters. One guy with a crazy tale rants at a bar until he meets another guy with a similar tale, and they meet other people like them. Soon you have a small organization. Now, in the other days, some people tried to expose them, but they all got mixed up with the frauds and were ridiculed. Now we mostly keep to ourselves." He then yawns and says, "It's getting late. I'll meet you in the morning tomorrow to start our search. You'll have all the time to ask questions when we head up north." And that's how the most impactful night of my life ended, burdened with knowledge of what lurks in the night and the determination to find out what the not deer did to my brother. And that's how the most impactful night of my life ended, burdened with the knowledge of what lurks in the night and the determination to find out what the not deer did to my brother. I woke up early in the next morning and I knew the detective would be coming soon. I hurriedly got prepared, buttering up some avocado toast and brewing a cup of coffee. I had soon finished my breakfast. My phone went off and I looked to see who texted me. It was Charles. "Hey Rigel, as a heads up, I'll be there in about 30 minutes. I put down my phone and began getting my stuff in order. The detective and I had been discussing over the phone where our first search would be, and we decided on our family's cabin. I'd already gathered over 100 rounds of buckshot for my 12 gauge and a utility knife. I also brought a machete in case the hunting paths my brother went on would be overgrown. I packed up my bags, and once I was finished, I saw the detective's car pull up, an 80s Toyota pickup. After we greeted each other, I loaded my gear and I went back and we headed off. That's when I started to ask my first question. So, tell me about your organization." Charles didn't say anything for an amount of time and then spoke. "Technically, we're an official subdivision of the DNR, but we started off as a group of hunters until we met DNR officers who were seeing similar things. Just how nobody knew about this, and the reason is because many of the officers were conservationists. There aren't just not deer, but a whole list of unusual species like jackalopes. And no, Sasquatch is not on the list. That just turned out to be a family with hypertrichosis. Anyways, there aren't a great deal of specimens, and the worry is that if word got out, poachers would go mad going around murdering them all for trophies. And anyways, when someone publishes actual proof, it's a simple matter to gaslight them as a hoax, especially with how social media is nowadays. Additionally, before Charles could continue on his tangent, a loud bark was heard in the back seat. "You didn't tell me you had dogs," I said. Charles simply replied, "Yeah, that's Charles and Asterion. They're trekking dogs that should be able to sniff out any nearby deer or anything else for that matter." I took a look outside the window. The pine trees already started flying by the road. "Already outside of town, huh?" I muttered to myself. Surprising there wasn't that much traffic. I asked another question. "So, how did you join the organization, Charles?" The detective furrowed his brow a little and said, "It was back in the year 1992. I was a park ranger in the Boundary Waters. I was doing a study on the fish in a certain stream. It's all normal until I started catching trout with fur instead of scales. I reported it to my boss, and he came to check it out. We spent some time surveying the area, and we found the source stream they were spawning in. We ended up putting up the area as an off-limits sanctuary or something, and at that point I still didn't know about the organization, but my boss had been taking me on unusual incidents from that point on until eventually I was formally recognized or learned about them." It all made sense except one thing. While I was looking outside the car window, one thought still hung in my mind, and I asked, "Sounds like you took a while to learn everything you did, so why am I being told all this?" The detective's face soured when he said, "Because this isn't a normal case. People don't usually go missing during these cases. And in addition to that, I joined back in the 1990s. Things have changed since then. Although we still keep information outside the public eye, we don't hide information from the people we're working with anymore, as that's caused issues in the past." Seems to reminisce on this for a moment. And like I said before, if anyone releases any information, it's easy to dismiss it as a hoax. Nothing much else happened on the trip, except for picking up a meal at Culver's. As we got closer and closer to our destination, less and less buildings sped past the windows as they were replaced by expansive lakes, forests, and rivers. Eventually, we got into a gravel road leading to the cabin. A log construct with a driveway going to the garage and to the lake below, with a small lawn in front and an untouched forest in the back. We got into the cabin and unpacked. Once we finished that, we gave the dog some food and water while we made dinner. Brats over a campfire. Truly nothing more northern Minnesota than that. After we had finished, the sun fell over the horizon and I went to bed. It's early in the morning, about an hour and a half before sunrise. I walked over to Charles, who's eating a bowl of cereal. "I'm going to start up the ATV. I'll see you outside," I say. Charles simply nods, and I think to myself about how strange it is to be with a stranger. However, as I walk into the garage, I realize perhaps it's not so strange. After all, they share a common goal, so wouldn't that make them comrades rather than strangers? Regardless, I start pouring fuel into the ATV. I then strap a full can onto the back just in case, along with my shotgun and other items. I start up the ATV. Good, it's still running," I muttered to myself. Regardless, I turn it off and change the oil. I also check the tires just in case until everything is good to go. No sudden malfunctions will be ruining our search. Just as I'm about to finish, Charles comes in with the dogs. "You ready?" Charles asks. "If you are." Charles takes his shotgun and his dogs, Charles and Asterion, and they jump into the back. "The first stand from the recording should be rather close to the trail entrance," I say as I take a map out of the glove box. Then I unfoil it. Pointing to the location, me and Orion had spent a lot of time detailing the trails around the cabin. Most stemmed from the Bear Trail, a road maintained by the Park Service. The trail we would be heading on was an offshoot on a trail bridging the cabin road to the Bear Trail. The cabin road was a fairly smooth ride. That stopped when we got to the trail churn-in, though. The entire trail was filled with large puddles of water and uneven terrain. We would be fine, however the dogs would not be happy, which is why we let them out of the vehicle to follow us behind. We couldn't go that fast anyway. It took us half an hour to reach the offshoot. From here on, the trail would be too tight to take the ATV. We disembarked, and the dogs greeted us ecstatically. I went to the back and unstrapped my gear before we headed down the trail. You want to go forward or walk behind me? I asked the detective. Staying back, I'll need to be able to react if my dog sense anything. Got it, I replied. It was still hunting season for grouse and other birds, so no one would bat an eye to our shotguns. We began heading down the trail, the dogs rushing ahead of us, periodically running into the woods a few feet and then coming back. Charles didn't say anything, though. Suddenly the dogs rushed ahead and stopped, sniffing at something. Both me and Charles walked over to see what was up, and I stopped and looked up at the trail ahead and noticed I could see the deer stand up ahead. Then I saw what the dogs were sniffing at. Laying on the ground was the lower part of a deer's jaw. I turned to look at Charles. You think it's from the deer my brother first shot at? I said. Charles replied, maybe, as he began looking around for something. Ah, there it is, Charles exclaimed. He brought something up from the ground, and there, sitting in his hand, was the horn of a ram. I thought to myself, up until this point I'd been considering if this was all a hoax. It couldn't be real, but now beyond doubt, my brother perished to something unnatural. Now it's not about proving what occurred, it's about revenge against what did that to him. We gathered the deer bits and continued searching, walking past the deer stand and past all the trees, past a field of aspens until we hit a fork in the road. I'll go right, and I'll go left, Charles responds. You don't mind if I take one of the dogs with me? Sure. Asterian's best with strangers. Come back to this fork in 1 hour. Understood, I responded. I set my watch to 30 minutes. 30 minutes to walk in and 30 minutes to walk out. The trail gets considerably smaller, but that doesn't seem to bother Asterion, who loves to pop in and out of the bushes. Suddenly the trail stops. I get my radio to signal Charles. Hey Charles, I've hit the dead end, I said into the radio. Good, I found something. See if you can come to my location, Charles replied. At those words I began hightailing it out of there, running as fast as I could, practically drifting when I take a U-turn around the fork and quickly make my way to Charles' location. Asterion seemed to be loving the run, ears flopping up and down, hopping into bushes every once in a while for fun. I see Charles up ahead and I slow down and start panting. Asterion and Chara are glad to be reunited with each other. I ask Charles, what's up? Take a look, Charles replies, and I notice a dead deer on the trail. What's the dead deer doing out here, I ask. Look closer, he replies. I squint for a few seconds and then it starts moving, convulsing, like something is invading it and rearranging it from the inside. What the? As Charles is filming the scene, he says, remember what I said about the theory that they invade bodies of dead deer? Well, it might not be so much of a theory anymore. I look at the rising mass before me when suddenly it gets up. Charles backs away and the dogs get nervous when all of a sudden it opens its mouth. Shit, I mutter to myself. Suddenly the forest seems to move around us. We need to go now, Charles yells. We run through the aspen fields and get to the other side of the forest when suddenly deer begin to pop out, blocking the path. I quickly bring up my shotgun and Charles brings up his shotgun. The deer drop and we run over to them. Shit, I mutter to myself, reloading my shotgun. After what seems like forever, we reach the ATV. I immediately jump in. Charles and the dogs follow suit. You might suspect I would immediately floor it, but then again, the terrain is quite bad. Still, I move faster than what would be safe, with Charles placing shots onto the oncoming deer. Eventually, we get out onto the cabin road, and I immediately hit the gas, drifting onto it. Thanking God I used to race these things back in high school, we crash into the driveway and immediately get inside, locking the doors and closing the blinds. We're safe for now. It's been a few hours since then. There are deer all over the property, and Charles has called some people, but they won't arrive until tomorrow. And Charles also collected a few samples, a jaw that was blown off, of course, but also a black, rising liquid he collected from that deer. Do you think it's their main body? I asked. I don't know, but I have a couple buddies who work for a lab who should be able to tell. That's good, I reply. All around outside, the deer are standing there. watching, their green eyes pointing at every window and door. Some look like deer, others are a mutant patchworks of parts and pieces that don't match. The sun begins to set and I go to bed. Charles works on something in the garage. I get into bed. I don't get much sleep, but by the morning Charles' friends have arrived and I prepare to leave. It doesn't take long to gather up my stuff, and the deer have luckily departed overnight. I eat a quick breakfast outside on the porch. It's a long trip back, with the increasing amount of buildings and people serving as my only marker showing how far I was from home. I arrive midday to my brother's house and unpack, both my things and feelings for what just occurred. Once I was done, I waved Charles goodbye and then made lunch. I didn't do much for the rest of the day. I didn't want to do anything. I started making dinner when the sun set below the tree line. Kielbasa and cabbage. I peeled the apples, cut the cabbage, and chopped up the kielbasa sausage. I mixed it all in a big cast iron pan, along with vinegar and mustard. As I'm cooking the meal and putting on medium on the stove, I look out the window. Deer. I jump back in surprise and immediately begin closing the blinds, locking the windows and doors, and once I'm done, I begin finishing cooking my dinner. As I was finishing up the meal and bringing it to the table, I hear something from the porch. Looking over to the closed window, I saw that though the blind was entirely closed, I could still see two green eyes through the sill. Just don't quit, do they? I muttered to myself. I fully shut the blind and go to bed. Rigel, is someone there? I exclaim. I look around the room, but no one's there. Must just be nerves. I put my head back down and try to go back to sleep. Rigel, who's there? I yell. I leave the bedroom and look around the house. Who's there? I yell again. Come outside, Rigel. I freeze in shock. No, it can't be. I turn to the familiar voice, a shuttered window. It's nice to see you again, Rigel, Orion says. I walk over to the window. It can't be. I keep repeating myself over and over. I think to myself, I shouldn't do what I'm about to do, but I can't look away. I remove the blind, and there, outside the window, stood countless deer. You are not him. Is it not enough for you to mock deer? Must you mock the brother you killed as well? I yell at the window. Not a mockery, not mockery. Real as the form, real as the shape, real as the claws. Shut the blinds and climb down to the basement, locking the door behind as the window shatters. We need you, Rigel. We want you, Rigel. I want to see you again, Rigel. The light in the basement goes out, and I'm left in the dark. Come with us, Rigel. Come back. The door to the basement breaks down. The light floods the basement. We love you, Rigel. And then I wake up. That's right, the car, the impact. How long was I out? How many days? Standing around me was my family. My father Asterion, my mother Chara, Uncle Charles, and my brother Orion. Rigel! Yes, I replied weakly. At those words, everyone erupted in cheers. I had been in a coma for a while due to a concussion, but other than a few scrapes, I was fine. That day we went outside for lunch, out to the field with my family, where everything was serene. I fell over instantly, the light draining from me, and the last thing I heard was, That's not a deer."